So for the PARS model, I thought it was very interesting and very helpful that it was broken up into 6 steps, and I also thought it was really interesting that it was broken up into sort of like a grid. Um, and then at the end, it was shown in like steps as to what questions you get asked for each step. So I think that would be very helpful for someone as they're going through the process of processing the activity with the group to kind of go through and kind of pick and choose which questions for each step that they want to use to help the group process the activity. Um, I think it was really cool that in the video it showed that when the group was completing their activity in the grid, it kind of showed like it kind of highlighted which step that they were in when the questions were being asked and the group was answering. So I think that was really neat, and it was really interesting that it was set up that way. And again, I think it's very helpful to counselors. When counselors kind of have a theory or a model thrown at them, sometimes it can be really confusing to kind of pick and choose where to start and how to flow, but I think the way they presented it really is helpful. This model will definitely be used throughout my work. Right now I'm in an elementary school setting, and I plan on being in the elementary school setting for my job as a school counselor. So right now we're actually starting some small groups. I'm pulling children right now. They're actually going through the screening process of small groups, but this will definitely be applicable to what I'm going to do. For example, I'll be working with ages 3rd through 5th grade, and one group we're going to do will be like, right now we're working with a lot of bullying, and we have some kids who are bullies. So one group activity we're actually planning is having them having the group of people kind of feel what it's like to be different or be disabled. So we're having them stack up pennies normally, and then stack pennies with their other hand, but they're only have to use 2 fingers of their other hand, and the idea is that it's supposed to be harder for them to use that, so they can appreciate what people with disabilities have to go through. We can say, well, people with disabilities, physical disabilities, have to go through this all the time. So some questions I can ask them, I can kind of go through this model and ask them the questions to kind of help them process it, such as the first one, reflecting, what do we do? The second one, how did you guys act towards each other? What did you say towards each other? Like, did they make fun of each other, or were they helpful? How did they participate for the reflecting self, for understanding how did they perform, and understanding their relationship for their self. What does it say about their ability to work with their self or others? And then, for applying the relationships and applying self, how does this apply to real life, and what does it say about themselves? So all those questions are really applicable, and I actually think this one will be really helpful for elementary students, because as one of the girls already mentioned before, this is really directive, and it uses directive questions. And elementary kids normally respond to directive questions. When you kind of give them non-directive questions, they kind of tend to wonder and get off task. So directive questions, they tend to answer it pretty quickly, and it keeps them on task. So I think this will really be helpful. So I'll definitely use this a lot. One thing that I may modify is kind of maybe not going through all the steps. There are 9 kind of steps, it looks like, applying self-relationships and the activity, understanding self-relationship in the activity, and reflecting self-relationships in the activity. If I go through all those questions and all those steps right after the group activity, that's going to take upwards of 45 minutes to an hour, and I just really don't have all that. So maybe picking and choosing maybe one question from each step, or just kind of maybe applying the self and applying the activity would kind of be the ones that I would want to highlight for the PARS model for this particular group. because most of the small groups that we use for elementary school are focused on more about, unless it's about getting along with peers, which is one group, but most of them is about themselves. I would probably focus more on just applying themselves and understanding the activity. I certainly wouldn't ignore the whole group thing because, of course, that's what the PARS model is about. But I would probably only pick a couple questions from there because, like I said, if I address most or a lot of the questions in all 9 areas, kids will be bored and they'll be off task. And again, I only have normally 30 to 45 minutes for a group, so it doesn't take long considering my elementary setting. So that's probably how I'm gonna modify it. But other than that, I'm actually excited to use this for the first time and see how it goes.